Hi everyone, Sajid Amit here, and welcome to my discussion on why the Sony WM1ZM2 is my favorite DAP. I do see that a lot of people who are into IMs love getting into discussions about DAPs. Some people add more to their arsenal, so they end up having 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 DAPs even. I'm someone who has at a different point, or not too long ago as a matter of fact, owned 15 IMs and all flagship class. I don't have 15 anymore. I've sold out a few, but I've never really felt the need to add more DAPs. I've tried, but that's never really worked out for me. This ends up trumping all the others. So I do want to talk a bit about why this is special, guys, and what makes me hold on to this and not add other DAPs to my collection, with the exception of course, the Sony DMP-Z1, which is the mother of all DAPs. It's a transportable, huge device, which I've reviewed on this channel. Not reviewed yet, let me correct myself. I've dropped an unboxing video off. That will get its review in due time. This is not a full review of this beauty, this gold brick as some of you like to call it. So the first thing that catches attention about this is its amazing finish. Guys, nothing from China or any other part of the world. I don't mean to sound like I have anything against China, because I love China, like I love India, like I love every other country, the US for instance. Nothing that I've seen come out from any other part of the world has the finish and the taste and the sheer luxurious sophistication of a Sony product. That's something that I stand by. Even the gold used here, gold can be tricky because I feel like gold can be gaudy, right? And gold can just sort of give off this nouveau-riche vibe. Not this guy. This guy, the sort of yellow shade of gold this has is just stunning. It's got two shades as a matter of fact. So this is a different shade from, let's say, the more yellow shade here. And I think these amp sockets have a slightly different shade. It just works really well. This difference in shades just disrupts this sort of continuity in the same shade, and it just works so well. And you have this black here, and overall, I have the black screen and all that. It's just stunning in my eyes, guys. I just love it. The Sony has a plethora of features. So this is an EQ function which works better than any other EQ I've tried. An amazing DAC system here going on. And of course, you have a whole bunch of things you can do in terms of, tweaking the sound in addition to the equalizer. This is Sony's trump card, the DSEE Ultimate, which when switched on, uses an AI technology to give you a sound that is closer to the original. And I will have a separate discussion on each of these features, written review perhaps. But just for the sake of this review, this has a DC phase linearizer. This has a dynamic normalizer and these lovely filters like the vinyl processor here, which does give this a more vinyl-like sound. As a matter of fact, the reason why I like the Sony so much is because I do think it sounds like an audio cassette. And not just because Sony used to make Walkmans in the past, but Sony does, I think, strive for the tape-like sound, which I grew up listening to, so I relate with it. Because even among analog sounds, there is distinction. There are distinctions between what a vinyl sounds like, what an audio cassette sounds like, and Sony gives me that. But in terms of its sound signature, just to talk a bit about its sound signature, and then I'll talk about why this DAP, why not others that I've tried, I find this to be a bit U-shaped. So I get sub bass and mid bass. Sony does have a thick sound, I think, but it's not warm overly in the sense that if your IM has treble, especially lower treble, you'll hear that. So it doesn't bring in any treble, and I find that some people who like warm DAPs, which have a treble roll-off, like the Ibasso DX300 DAPs, they find the Sony has treble. It's not the Sony that has treble, it's your IM that has treble. So it doesn't necessarily hide the treble, it gives you what the treble is. It doesn't add any air, but it does add a bit of thickness to the lower mid, so a bit more body to the vocals and instruments, which makes it sound lovely. It does do bass really well, so the bass foundation of the Sony DAP is just marvelous. So a bit of a U-shape. I do think the vocals are recessed just a tad, which works for me. Other DAPs also have recessed vocals. For instance, the Aslan Kern house sound I think is a bit recessed in vocals, so instruments somewhat come forward. The Aslan Kern, however, has a bit of texture in the bass, which, on the flip side of that, is that it's a bit soft in the bass. And I've AB'd the AK DAPs intensively with the Sony DAP. I used to own a bunch of AK DAPs, and I love the AK house sound. But after hearing Sony, I realized that the AK bass just lacks a bit of texture. I mean, sorry, it has texture, but it lacks a bit of grunt. So if you have overly bassy stuff like the Empire Ears IMs, they might actually pair better with AK than with Sony. So that's worth keeping in mind. However, the AK stuff, as well as they synergize with something like, the Empire Ears Odyssey or even the Raven, which I've not tried, but they do pair well, relatively, with the Legend Evo, which is very difficult to get a pairing right for. I do prefer this for more, a variety of genres and a variety of music types. And a variety of IMs, of course. So that's one reason why I would take this over the AK. I talked a bit about the Ibasso DX300, which is a lovely DAP, and you can tune the DAP with different modules, of course. But overall, the Ibasso has a very warm house sound, the DX300 does, which to some extent even lobs off the treble, I think. And again, it worked really well with the Noble Audio Ragnar, which is so bright and just too powerful for me in the treble. I mean, I wouldn't buy the Ragnar, honestly, but unless I had a DX300 from Ibasso. But the Ibasso was doing stuff to the treble, and it just didn't have the width of soundstage or the resolution of the Sony. So that's why I would take this over the Ibasso DX300. Moving on to Ibasso DX320 Max Ti. I mean, the latest Ibasso DAP, I think, is a little more grandiose sounding than the Ibasso DX300. Certainly has more resolution even. The ROM chips, I think, give it a neutralish to bright sound signature, and all that's nice, and the bass does have impact. However, I feel like the bass lacks a bit of thickness to it, and I feel like the vocals lack a bit of body, and I feel like it's at different points a bit too airy. And that TI version that Ibasso's come out with also has these amp sockets that are not aligned, and that does trigger my OCD a bit, and I feel like a lot of us audiophiles can be OCD, so that didn't work out for me, guys. Not for the sound or the form factor, and you sort of have to put it like this on its volume knobs and its gain selector, because there's no other way of putting it. You cannot put it on its sort of bottom, and that just doesn't work out for me aesthetically or ergonomically. Moving on to Kane DAPs, I have liked Kane DAPs. I think the N6 Mark II was a decent DAP, neutral bright, good for its price point. I have owned the N8 Mark II, and I wasn't a huge fan of the N8 Mark II because it was a bit too ethereal for me. The bass had texture, but the bass seemed to punch, but then there was something missing from that punch. It had missing the last bit of grunt in the bass impact, which this does not. So the the Kane N8 Mark II got sold. I'm yet to hear the N30 LE, and I'm told it's warmer than the N8 Mark II. However, what stopped me from buying the N30 LE, not just the price. I'm not a huge fan of Kane aesthetics. I think there's a certain amount of bling going on that is not done as tastefully, or to my taste, for example. I'm not a huge fan of the Kane gold knob or the Kane gold buttons. And I think the Kane house sound for me has always had a neutral, brightish flavor to it. And even now that they're using AK449EX DAC chips, or EQ, I'm sorry, I think ultimately the Kane tuning favors that sort of neutral brightness that I'm not a huge fan of. And I just haven't really enjoyed the Kane bass punch so far. And there's something about the Sony sound that just makes me stop, wondering and wondering. So I'm not going to take the Kane route. Other DAPs that I've liked, that I've tried, that haven't really worked out for me to that extent are luxury precision DAPs. I've tried a whole bunch of their P6 Pro lineup. The P6 Pro lineup sounds even more analog than this. So you might wonder, why am I not switching to that? And that's because I don't get the same level of technical performance from the P6 Pro, to say nothing of the fact that they're not very user-friendly to use. They don't have streaming. And when I say the P6 Pro DAP lineup doesn't have the same level of technical performance, I mean, I don't find them to be as resolving, and I feel like the soundstage is like this. It's really, really small. The P6 Pro, across all its variants, gave me a soundstage that was very small, whereas this guy gives me a soundstage that's all the way up here, and it's not diffused. It somehow manages to give you a wide soundstage while giving you body in the vocals and mid-range and bass. So the P6 Pro was not for me. I'm yet to try the LP6 DAP, so I'll give you that. Haven't tried that yet. And I do want to, again, very clearly say I haven't tried the Kane N30 LE, so it might well be a game changer for people, but I'm just a bit not interested in the Kane house sound as of now. That might change. I did love the Kane dongle, and I've reviewed it on this channel. If I ever get to put my ears on a Kane N30 LE, I might change my mind, so I'll come back to you with the video if that happens. And I do look forward to trying the Kane N30 LE when I go to Singapore next year. Okay, no other DAPs come to mind. The Hibby RS8 wasn't my cup of tea. I thought it was fairly technical, as technical as this. I thought it was fairly warm and neutral, but there was something in it that didn't give me the analogishness that I crave that I get with this, nor was it as Delta Sigma as, let's say, as certain devices can be. So that was for me neither here nor there. That's just me, and I haven't really enjoyed the hippie house sound before that either. So that's it, guys. This is my favorite DAP. It works across genres. I like vocals with this. I like metal rock with this. I like classical jazz, soundtrack-based music. You name it, this performs. This is my favorite DAP. This has always been recommended by me, so that's what it is. You might find IMs that do not pair well with this. The Empire Ears Odin does not pair well with this. The Empire Ears Legend Evo does not pair well with this. So keep that in mind, guys. Keep that in mind. Synergy is important. So for most of my use cases, so for most IMs that I like, that I've liked, that I want to buy, this is working out well for me. So that's it for me. I hope this was useful. If this was, give it a like and follow my work. If you have not, follow my channel, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye-bye.